Yes.
We're live, Karsten.
Sorry, I'm a bit slow here today, but I guess we should be live.
I think we are, yeah. Can somebody confirm with me?
Yes, we are.
Oh,
We are.
good.
Thank you, guys. So what time is it? It's 11:02. So while we usually have some people joining us a few minutes later if they're coming from another meeting. So my suggestion is that I slowly get started with the basics, like but we have a familiar crowd. So give me a second. I'm looking at my files. Here we are. So you were all, well, David was near, Suleima. So last week we had Mike Webster from Cornell. Oops, I'm forgetting to share the screen. There we go. So Martin, last week we had Mike Webster. I was telling you about him today from Cornell University, who talked about his research on Australian fairy wrens. And I still have the typo there, which is not fins, but genes. But what's very interesting, Martin, that you and I were discussing today, we were discussing with Mike how we should have a dialogue with these institutions and labs and who are always looking for places where their students can do research and places that are established and imagining some kind of multi-university consortium that taps on amazing projects and field sites like you're gonna share with us today. So that was Mike last week. And next week, we're going to hear from Isabella Capellini, who is at Queen's University in Belfast, Ireland, who is going to be discussing drivers and consequences of the evolution of parental care diversity in amphibians. I smile when I read drivers because we've just been nailed by a reviewer because of our use of the word driver in discussing the evolution of parental care in our monkeys, arguing that we don't really have any knowledge of drivers for our system. So that's interesting. So let me close this and now go to introducing our speaker. What did I do wrong? Yes. So it is really indeed. I mean, Martin was reminding me the other day that because a little story here, I misspelled his last name and I felt so stupid when I did that. And he said, well, it's been 29 years and you still cannot get my last name correctly. And yes, that was very stupid of me, but better say it. And why not? Now I was going over his CV and it reminded me, right? I mean, he gets his first degree, same university where I went in biology in Buenos Aires in 1995. And I was finishing my PhD in 96. And so we met sometime then. After doing his first degree in biology, he went to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign he did a master's first. But yes, David, Martin completed his PhD at your home school, working with Paul Garber as his advisor. And then, well, he went back to Argentina. So we've been overlapping back and forth as I went back, as he went back. But what Martin succeeded in doing, that only time will say whether I didn't dare try or I failed, is that he has absolutely, I cannot think of another person who's done more for the growth of primatology in Argentina. Definitely for Argentina, he is absolutely the person who's done the most. And in the last, now almost 50 years, he's been absolutely an engine behind the growth of Latin American primatology being rooted in Latin America. Of course, there was a lot of primatology in Latin America before this, but now it's starting from the same countries and by the same colleagues where those primates live. So over all these years, he's been in charge of the longest. Tony and Martin may help me. I think that right now, the howler monkey research in the province of Corrientes, Argentina, must be the longest primate project in South America. Am I right? Maybe longer than Karen Streyer's Muriquis. So, and he joined there some of our early our senior colleagues like Gabriel Zunino, and he's been there in Corrientes leading this project for a long, long time. It's fantastic. This is a coincidence. What Martin is going to be sharing with us today illustrates what the fine organizers are hoping to bring to fine starting next year, taking from your survey responses. Martin has really extended his research, his presence, his mentoring and training beyond primatology to include other taxa and to really seek the benefits to society, but also to our science of bringing some more applied components to the research he's been doing on demography and population biology of howler monkeys. Some of us are very, very familiar with the difficulties and challenges that area has gone through because of natural disasters in the last, over the course of 20 years. I mean, I remember already when I was at Davis, there were some floods that we all tried to help with. And I know that we're going to be hearing about that as well. So with that, you know the routine. We're seeing some new faces. We'll go, Martin will present to us for about 50 minutes or so, trying to finish by the hour. And then we look forward to talking to him. So with that, I want to mention, I want to let you, give me a second, I want to get the title. So Martin will be presenting to us a talk on the life history traits and social dynamics in black and gold howler monkeys in northern Argentina. So Martin, thank you so much for your time, and please take it from here.
Hey, I'm gonna share the screen. Thank you, Eduardo, for your invitation and presentation to this talk. Okay, can you see the?
Yep, we're here. We can hear you well, and it looks good.
Okay, so thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And so the idea of this talk is to present some data that we have here. Like this site where I'm working has like 40 years, 45 years. We have, we are trying to compile all the data. I told this to Eduardo in Colombia like 3 months ago, that I'm still trying to compile the data because I still looking for like all notebooks from all researchers trying to, understand what they were writing and stuff like that. So I'm going home by home, this guy Zunino and other people, and asking for give me all your paperwork, give me everything you have. So I go to their home, I bring all the papers they have, everything, and then I so I'm gonna talk about this life history thing, and I'm gonna present some data that we got, then we can discuss where I can go from this also, and then I'm gonna in the part 2 of this talk, I'm gonna use a short time to talk about this idea that if we should keep studying howlers or what's going on with howlers and what can we do with howlers in Latin America during these days. So for this talk, I'm going to use this life history framework. I'm trying to move the stuff that is on my screen, sorry. Okay. And it's interesting when you can get, I mean, you need this long-term studies, and it's interesting when you can get this life history trace about your population study, because you can understand different stuff about your population. You can understand evolutionary cycles, you can understand, and you can find different patterns, and you can also like research or investigate about this plasticity between populations within a species. The howlers are a good example of this. I'm going to tell you why. So why study life history traits in howlers? It gives us information about understanding primate biology and evolution. Now we can understand a lot of stuff, like how they adapt to different environments, how different trade-offs were modeling their life cycles, and we can understand phylogenetic connection with other species within the genus. Also, it gives us tools for conservation biology, because we can understand different problems that we have with population viability, especially in howlers that are going through extinction problems, and we can put together effective strategies to recover this population and study how to recover this population. And also maybe we can also understand how howlers are gonna react against this changing environment, that we are facing today with the climatic emergency we're going through. And also give us a lot of data and tools to keep testing models within the framework of life history. So these are our black and gold howler monkeys. Alouatta caraya is a dimorphic species with males that are black and females that are gold or brownish or whatever the name you want to the color, because we say before blonde, but we cannot say anymore blonde. So we have to say brownish to golden. So males are up to 10 kilograms, females up to 6 kilograms. They live in cohesive group. They are arboreal and eat fruits, leaves, and flowers. I know maybe many of you know howlers. We're gonna talk about these howlers through the talk. So the goal of this talk is to compile this life history trace data from a long-term study on these howlers in fragmented forests, and try to compare this data against a population in a continuous forest that is very close to that one. And then try to explore these variations between traits in these two different populations. So this is our two study sites. Here, you can see my mouse.
Yeah.
Okay, so here, this is the fragmented forest where this site has 40 years of data. It began, of course, with 10 groups, and now we have like 30 groups that we are following. Here, this is a little complex figure, but in green are groups that we consider rural because they're contact with cattle and stuff like that. In yellow, groups that we consider urban, and the green, the orange stars are people living too close to these groups, that we are studying all the systems together. I'm not going to talk about this during this presentation, but we are studying also this system of the interaction between humans and different groups. So this is the fragmented forest, and then we have a continuous forest in an island. This island is an island of 300 hectares. The forest here is continuous, a flooded forest, and we have also like between 20-25 groups that we are following. But these groups we follow for like 20 years. So this is the location of the sites. So here, this is the Paraguay River, and this is the Paraná River. So the island where we study is here, and the other fragmented site where the field station is located is down here. So from here to here are like 20 kilometers. And we have different characteristics that give a good model to study these different populations. So if we want to travel from one population to other population, we had to drive, and we drive only 1 hour from one side to the other side. So it's a perfect place to work. So we were collecting data for many different studies. In this site in Argentina, we don't have sometimes continuous data for the 45 years because economical problems, crisis. So sometimes we have small gaps too that we were trying to put together. But we also have students. Every time we had a student that is interested in studying howlers, we offer these students to answer whatever the question is with our population, with our long-term study population. So in this way, we can keep collecting different data. And we were talking about this with Eduardo, about like trying to put a lot of energy in these long-term study populations to get more data. So I'm going to show you this is some difference between the two sites. This is large difference we have where the continuous forest is located. It's less seasonal than the other side. Because of the latitude of our site in Argentina, we have 4 seasons, and the winters are cold. And during the winter, we have several days with temperatures under 0 degrees Celsius, degrees. In the island, because of the regulation of the river, maybe we don't have, it's not so strong, this seasonality. So that influence then also in the vegetation and plants too. So in the continuous forest, we have floods every year. We set in the position. The floods cover the island, but it doesn't affect the howler population. So howlers move on the trees, and the floods never reach the crowns of the trees. And then when we compare the trees and vegetation, the diversity and richness in the continuous forest is lower. We have more vines and shrubs all the time because there are more open gaps and stuff like that. The trees are larger, but is than in fragmented forest. The density also is the tree density is higher in the fragmented forest, but is placed in forest patches in a matrix of a grassland, no? And in the continuous forest is a continuous forest where all the howlers live almost all together, like in a big, large community. So this is some characteristic of the two sides that we have from the population. With the food, this is a discussion that I can have forever. We measure food in a traditional way. We categorize the whatever a tree has, the items the tree has, flower, leaves in 1 to 4, and then we create an index multiplying by some characteristic of the tree, the crown, the basal, the basal area, and stuff like that. And with that, we said there are more food than in one side to the other side. But I understand that that's not enough. What I think is we don't have an idea on how to measure food for these guys. No, that's a problem that we have. But they say that this is what we follow, and at least what reviewers in a paper ask to us. So we write this, and they're happy. So okay, but we know everybody knows that we don't know how to measure food. We know that, and we don't have any idea yet. And nobody is coming up with new ideas after Chapman 1992. So comparing continuous forest and fragmented forest, the density of howlers is 3 times higher in the continuous forest against the fragmented forest. This number here, I put this in red. What you can see here, this ratio is the ratio of unimale to multimale groups in the continuous forest and in the fragmented forest. So what you can see here is that in the continuous forest, where the density is higher, there are a larger proportion of multimale groups. No, 4 males, 5 males with 4 females. And in the fragmented forest, you have 1 male with 4 females. No, that's I think about howlers. No, there are no howler group with more than 4 adult females, but males can go from 1 to 7 sometimes. And then we have when we estimate the rate of intergroup encounters on the island, because of this density of groups and individuals, we have each group encounters at least another group twice a day. So we have 2 encounters per group per day. When in the fragmented forest, we have some variation through the years, but it's around 1. No, it depends on how many groups you have in a fragment too. Home range is similar between the two sides, between 6 and 8 hectares. I mean, it doesn't matter it does not matter the variation of the food that we found. Home range is similar. The overlapping of home range is higher in a continuous forest because also the density of groups and because of this, we have also this high rate of intergroup encounters. And the fragmented forest, the overlapping of home ranges change through the time. I'm going to show you how this change happened in a minute. Distribution of birth. Also, we wrote a paper in like 20 years ago, and we found that was a peak of birth in the fragmented forest that it seems to follow what we found is like the weaning of the howlers were following maybe the spring and summer. We found that, and we say that, and now I'm not so sure. I can write a contra paper against myself now, and then we started this pattern on the island. we found that there were no pattern, and we say, okay, there are so many food on the island that there is no pattern of birth, and there are this seasonal food on the fragmented forest, so they have to follow this peak of birth through the year. But then we keep studying the birth pattern on the island. At 1 year they have a peak, 1 year they don't have a peak, 1 year is so. It seems there is something else going on there, and it's not following the food. And this is another problem, because when we think about how the peak was, how the winning was following the food, it was an idea that we had from before. We I don't know, it's like a we wanted to say that before thinking about that. So we say, you know, the flowers, the winning, perfect. It's a good story, we write it down. But there, I mean, is if you keep doing, if you have this study where you keep collecting data year after year after year, I mean, all these patterns disappear. And then if you think a little more deeper, I mean, it makes no sense for a group of howlers to follow a pattern of food that changes every year. It's unpredictable for howlers, the food, because I can construct like a graph for you and say, okay, flowers, this and this, and give you like a perfect cycle through the years, because I want to do that. But if I go deep into that, there are no cycle. I mean, sometimes there are flowers in here and flowers there. There are sometimes they have like a lot of vines and shrubs and everything changes. So to me, food is unpredictable. To being a strong driver of these kind of things, as Eduardo likes to use drivers. And this is some data, some life history trace data that we are putting together. So this is comparing continuous forest and fragmented forest. First, we talk about females. Age at first reproduction is similar in both forests, in both populations. Gestation days is similar too. Winning age is a little later in the continuous forest, but that's the same. If I run a statistical test on this, I'm gonna find differences. But then I am biologist. I mean, saying 1 month is not a difference. No, I mean, so the difference is one month at the end, or 2 months. So I don't think it's a good difference to say there are two patterns. IBI or interbirth interval are similar too. When you go to males, yes, it seems that in fragmented forests, the rate of infant mortality due to infanticide is larger. Maybe because just the I'm gonna discuss this a little later, but the way they behave in a fragmented forest against a continuous forest. Both age of dispersion in males is similar. The tenure of a central male in a group. Central male is an alpha male. We call it central male. Is similar too. Age of first reproduction in males is similar. Full black color. So when they reach the full black coat is similar too. So we have some variables that are conserved. So when you compare these two populations, that seems that they have different kind of habitat with different species, different tree composition and plant composition and stuff like that. You have that diet, but in terms of the time invested in eating different items, is similar. Activity budget, similar. Home range and day range is similar. All these gestation periods, lactation, and weaning similar. IBI, infant mortality outside from infanticide is similar. Male tenure in a group is similar. Age and first reproduction of female and males are similar, and the dispersal age of both sexes are similar too, comparing between sites. Which variables we found they change between populations? Well, the density, number of individuals per group or males per group, and then the overlapping of home ranges. Then this multi-male, unimale social organization is different. We have more multi-males in the continuous forest. Intergroup encounters are higher too in multi-males, offering different kind of, intergroup encounters every day offer an interesting platform for stuff too, communication and stuff. Mating strategies are different. I didn't discuss this before, but in the continuous forest, because of this high density maybe of this high intergroup encounter, high rate of intergroup encounters, females have the opportunity of mate with many different males. So we have extreme like females copulating one day with 7 different males, 3 resident males and 4 non-resident males. And something interesting is happening in the multi-male groups on the island, and we have central males witnessing resident females copulating with other resident males, no? Which is something that we didn't expect before. When you go to the fragmented forest where you have unimal group, it's a little more complicated. Males don't allow any other male to approach females, and it's more reluctant to any kind of sharing behavior of females. So we have these 2 different strategies, males and females using, of course, different sexual strategies, and they are different in both populations. Birth pattern is here. It's under discussion. Maybe the data we have, it seems that they are different. Infanticide rate and replacement rate of male is higher also in the fragmented forest. So from I'm not going to show you all our data results, because now we have a doctoral student working with this nutritional ecology framework, and everything changed again in our interpretation of the diet of howlers. But it seems that nutritional requirements of the howlers are met by only minor adjustment in diet, their range, lactation, IBI, and infant mortality. So again, is this idea that maybe food, when it's not, when they don't go under an extreme of scarcity or something like that, it's not important and it's unpredictable for howlers. So these howlers has the ability of adapting to this adapting to different offer of food by doing minor changes in behavior. So let me tell you a story, for example, of one forest fragment. We have this forest fragment has 12 to 15 hectares. From 1984 to 2004, we have 2 groups. It's 6+1 because sometimes you find another groups going by or passing through, but they never established in the forest. We have unimale organizations or age-grade male organization, which is central male with some related male infants or sons. We have 10 to 20% of overlap between home ranges and very few encounters between the groups. In 2004, we have a large event of deforestation. No? Some forest fragments were cleared out completely. So we have a lot of group of howlers running around the landscape. No. So two new groups arrived to this fragment, and from 2005 to 2019, we have 4 groups +1, living in the same fragment with the same amount of food, with the same stuff, with the same size, group size between all here in this area. The group go between 9 to 11 individuals. On the continuous forest go up to 20. So what happened here is we have 4 groups, and this group moved from unimale to multimale through the years, like on the island. They increase the overlap between home ranges, they increase the density, of course, in the fragmented forest, and they increase the encounters per day, because they were encounters, they were, overlapping all the home range. Then in 2020, we have a fire. We lost a lot of groups. I'm going to show you that in a second. And in this forest, we finished with 2 groups now again, as before. The group went back to unimale with a decrease in overlap home range, a decrease in density, and decrease in home range in the rate of encounter between groups. So what I think that here is going on is like when there is an increase of density in howlers because of on the island is because there is a lot of trees and habitat or continuous habitat. Here it's because of kind of this kind of over deforestation events or stuff like that. You have all this group together. When the group begins to encounter each other every day for some reason, it seems that it pays go from unimale to multimale. And what I think is like it's a way the males have to control females that have that implement a behavior of being with all the males available. So we have this strategy. The female use this strategy to increase the number of copulation with different males. It could be for any reason. We can discuss that later. It could be increased variability of offspring, looking for opportunities of breeding, moving to other group, or just avoiding infanticide. It doesn't matter. And males get together with other males to defend their female from other groups that are encountered every day. Because we have, when it happens, there are copulation during the group encounters and all the time when all this density increase. So I would say that the driver here is no food. Sorry for the driver thing. Now I didn't think about driver, but you say driver, and now I'm saying driver. So the driver here it should be the possibility of increasing density because of the environment allows that, and I don't think it's the food, the kind of food. There is something else going on there. So this is another thing I want to show you. What we have here is it's in Spanish, percentage of encounters, and in green is the percentage of encounter are aggressive. That means two groups get together and howl each other, maybe may touch each other or something like that. In blue, you have neutral encounters. Neutral encounters are when two groups get together in a resting site or a feeding site, and they do nothing. They remain there in silence. Juveniles play. Juveniles for one group play with the juveniles for the other group. They are playing. Some subadults go down to play. And especially we have this behavior. I think it's also in Brachyteris too, that during these encounters, juveniles and infants go to the ground and play. And then they go back to their groups. No, it's very similar to a park, where we take our kids. The same. And it's interesting that this is in the fragmented forest. When we have an increase of density of groups within the forest patch, the intergroup encounters went from aggressive to neutral. So they were moving, they were changing the kind of encounter. Then when we had the fire and the group density decreased in the forest fragment, again, the encounters were aggressive again. So it seems that when this group gets together and they have this strategy going on, sexual strategy of female males, but also they meet every single day. They meet one or twice a day. They begin to stop fighting, and they begin to. I don't know what they are doing. Maybe it's a platform to change information, to move among groups, between groups, individuals, or just to share infants to play. To like a platform for juveniles or subadults to train for some social behavior or stuff like that. Well, in 2020 we have the first massive fire. This is our site in October 2020. Well, let me show you the result. What happened with this fire? These are the groups that were studying around the field station that is located here. This is 22 for now, our 30 groups that we are following that were exposed to the fire. So within the yellow lines where we have the massive fire, and after like 1 day of fire, it was 2 days of fire, we lost of the groups. No, with a red cross, you can see all the groups that died after the fire, and in yellow, there are groups that remain in their position, but this changed the composition, which is I cannot explain. It's like we went back, the group was there, but the male was not the male, the female was not the female, or there was a female of the previous group and there was a new female. So it's like the survival individuals were grouped together in some space that they could. After 4 years, we have 2 new groups, or no, 4 new groups that are forming, like working around and trying to establish some place. These are the howlers that are some of the howlers we lost in that fire. Here you can see is this pink flyer show when they belong to, when it's the whole group together, no? It's the whole group that we, and that was an impressive impact that we have on us. So out of the 20 groups around the field station, we lost 11, 5 changed composition, and 4 years, after 4 years, we have 4 new small groups. During the first year, females had no offspring. After 1 year of the fire, they begin to have offspring again. Today, none of the groups are increasing in size, and most of the groups are decreasing in size. So after 5 years of 4 years, 5 years of the fire, groups cannot increase in size. And maybe this is related to some kind of, this could be related to some food related or something like that. We have a strange behavior, we have male adoption, we have some groups went to 1 male and 2 females. 2 females die, and the male adopted the infants and tried to raise them. That we never saw that before. We have an increase in dog predation because howlers now are switching fragment, because it could be that they are looking for more food, or there are more open spaces too, because in fragments where other howler group die because of the fire, now it's empty. So the forest is recovering, and now the spot is empty. So they cross because they are now howling. They cannot hear anything, so they move around. And now this is under. I'm not gonna show this data because it's part of many dissertations that are ongoing now. But we are doing is like we are studying proxies of stress, microbiome, and nutritional impact on this howler population after the massive fire. We have data before the fire, and we incorporate a new site close to this site without fire. So we are trying now. We are working on this with different labs too. We are collaborating. So the news of this fire was terrible. They reached all over the world, and people were trying to help us. We took an advantage of this to work with schools, people, to get a law to protect howlers, and establishing these road bridges across towns and everywhere we could. So we took this tragedy we made this into an opportunity to promote the conservation of howlers. We were installing these bridges all over the place. The first one in Corrientes, and now they are because there are schools making bridges all over the provinces anywhere. I don't know if they don't study where to locate bridges, but they are locating bridges, which is a good explosive action. And when everything began to work, we have another fire this year. This is the fire. This fire lasts from March 4 to March 9. So we didn't have howlers dying because we didn't have any more howlers here. So the two remaining groups that were surviving here ran away from the fire, no? Because here before we had like 5 groups or 6 groups where this fire is happening. So during in this time we changed our strategy, and I was talking this to Eduardo, and we tried to reach people in a different way. So we began to ask for donations. For donations to buy equipment for the rangers, equipment for the state park and stuff. So all my team. Desde el 3 de marzo, durante 6 días, estuvimos combatiendo el fuego en el Parque Forestal Santa Cruz. Un combate cuerpo a cuerpo donde las becarias, estudiantes de la estación, vecinos, bomberos y demás habitantes de acá de los alrededores nos ayudaron a luchar contra el fuego, que lamentablemente se terminó llevando casi todo el parque otra vez. Fue una situación muy difícil. Here you can see.
Este es un puente que construimos junto con los estudiantes para que pasen los monos y se nos perdió.
Necesitamos tu ayuda para recuperar estos ambientes y así darle una nueva oportunidad a los animales y las plantas para que puedan volver a este lugar.
Sin los puentes, los monos bajan al suelo, donde pueden ser atacados por perros o incluso atropellados.
Necesitamos tu ayuda. Podéis donar siguiendo los links en la bio. Well, at least this strategy, this change of strategy is super hard because we are not used to do these videos or ask for money. It's very difficult to ask for money. This is super difficult. But we reach a lot of people in this way. We had donation, a small donation for many people in Argentina. And we also went to radios and TV programs, and we reach people in a different way because we want to make people, to react against this stuff. So, coming back to life history, so now we have new data coming in. So the tragedy of the fire give us an opportunity to study a lot of things, no? Because we can study the impact of massive fires on fauna that we know from before. As Eduardo told you, we are studying also. We are working with canids too, foxes and neotropical otters. So we have so much data from before the fires that we can understand the pattern and compare that with other populations. So we have a nice system to understand what's going on. So understanding life history variation within species could help us to reveal adaptation, how these adaptations work, understand how these populations adapt to different environments, and how they may adapt to new changing environments too. And what we need is long-term studies. No, if we don't have long-term studies, it's so difficult to get this data. I mean, and this is crucial, I think. No, and now I'm gonna move to the second part of the talk, and it's very short. That it has to do with what to do with howlers from now on. And we have this common perception that we know everything about howlers, and the howlers do nothing because they sleep all day. When I was doing my master thesis, I remember I had this idea of studying howlers and doing some kind of social interaction in howlers. And the people who were in charge of I can't say that because Eduardo didn't say where I did my master. He said, no, you don't have to study howler for that. That's a bad model. You have to study like a monkey that do more stuff. Well, I didn't care because the problem of that advisor is that he didn't know the howlers. And I knew the howlers, so I knew they were doing things besides sleeping. And still we can do stuff. These are problems that, for example, these are all the species of howlers. They go between 9, 12 to 15, depending on the author you follow. We had 3 long-term study sites with more than 30 years of data, 35 with these Ceniculus in Venezuela, Naratoidea, Paliata in Colombia, and Caraya in Argentina. These were the longest study sites with data with howlers. Now there is nothing. Still remain this in Argentina, and this with Alejandro Estrada and Sari Bambel, we know that is having problems that side too, so I don't know if it's still working as before. So if we see this, the howlers, which is the most studied species of all South America, it doesn't have any long-term study site. Of course, when somebody told me, but you study howlers because it's easy, yes. And it's super easy to study howlers. As if there are some people there that want to study howlers, it's easy because they are easy to see, they are easy to follow, they are easy to identify, they are easy to find. Because they sleep all day, and because you can find them now everywhere, like in the middle of the forest, in urban areas, rural areas, and in the cities. And this is a problem that we have today, that we have this howler established in cities. It's new for Argentina, no? It's not new for other part of the world. But this is a new phenomenon in Argentina. In cities like in northern Argentina, we have howlers entering into cities and living there. Now, this voice is because we created like community system that everybody send us videos when they see a howler moving around the city. But you can see also this howler in the swimming pool. So this is a new thing that we have to study, and we are establishing long-term study sites in cities too, and try to understand variation in this new population. No, they are different. No, it's very hard for them to reach other howler groups to disperse. So we are helping them. We are creating connections between them, between the groups within the city. There are a lot of problems with disease dynamic within cities with howlers that that are new, and also they are raiding crops too, which is new too for Argentina. They are eating like fruit from all the trees, from people that use the fruit for stuff, for food or stuff. So this is something new, and there is a program in Porto Alegre in Brazil, studying Guariba for many years now. And now there is in southern Mexico, the NICE STAM, and her group is establishing a long-term study on cities too, and we are trying to do the same here in Argentina. Then we have problems with this, the problem of you have howlers everywhere, of course, they're coming into cities, coming into houses, coming into rural areas, coming into everywhere. So people want to be free of howlers. So they ask authorities to remove howlers from their gardens or the parks or the clubs. And what they're doing is they're removing howlers, and without a good sanitary screening, they're putting them back in native forests, encroaching the forest and moving diseases into the forest. So, of course, the solution here is hard, but it's euthanasia. We don't have places to put howlers anymore. There is no empty forest. But nobody's gonna pay the political cost of killing howlers anywhere. This is another threat. I show you fire and droughts. We have a drought in southern Mexico last year that killed many howlers. We have this new problem, at least in Argentina. We have many howlers live close to plantations where we have agribusiness with herbicides and pesticides. So this is a new line that we are working. We know that there is some people working on this in other species in Africa too. But they're getting intoxicated too. Also, microplastic, we are working too. We have data for 3-4 species. Most of the howlers, we don't have any data or any continuous data. We have problems also in Argentina. Now in Colombia, there is an outbreak of yellow fevers, and howlers die of yellow fever super soon, like in 5 days. It's good for people because if you know that howlers die, you can vaccinate people, but it's bad for them. We are trying to recover populations. At least in Argentina, we have one species of howler, which is Alouatta guariba, is almost extinct. So we are working in a large program to recover the population, reintroduce them from Brazil. And we are dealing with this now in one of our provinces in Misiones, that we have mixed group of howlers of guariba and caraya that they are reproducing, and they are also, we are thinking in hybridization as a threat for the species. And it's also now we need to look for places without caraya to reintroduce these guys. No, this is a male of Guariba copulated with a female of caraya. These are male of caraya with a it's gonna reproduce with this female of Guariba and so on. So we have still with howler, we have conservation problems, huge conservation problem, and now with the new massive fires. So we work here in Argentina for 45 years, and in the last 5 years we have 2 massive fires. So this is new. Nobody has any. There are no primary adaptations to fires, or we don't have many trees adapted to fire. It's new. We don't have data for most of the species. We need more long-term studies. We need to understand what's going on with urban ecosystems and how it's going to be this interchange between urban and native forest, the movement. And well, I think that Alouatta remains, for many reasons, as an ideal model for advancing studies, answering questions and designing strategies that can be adapted to other species. And this plasticity that they have between populations can give us opportunity to understand this. Which are the social drivers of organization in the species, in this species and other howlers. So, if you are interested in howlers, you are invited to come down here to Argentina, send students to our site. We have a lot of stuff going on here, and we have more stuff going on because we have fires, if you want. We have sites with fire, without fire, with flood, without flood. So we have so many things to study. We are running studies on parasites, microbiome, behavior, anything you can imagine. So anybody is invited. If you want to send students down here, we are gonna be grateful too. So thank you.
Muchas gracias. Thanks, Martín. Very powerful, very powerful, moving presentation with those images and videos. I was trying to think if we had any other previous talk at Fine where they had struggled with so much environment out of control and so vividly impacting their lives, the lives of their monkeys, of their subjects, and the lives of people in the nearby area. So tons of things I think to discuss and reflect going forward. For those of you who may be visiting us or joining us for the first time, what we normally do, what we always do in Fine, starting now, is we invite you to type in the chatting window a question mark. And if you're a student or if you're an early career colleague, just type an S for student, because we like to give priority to our younger colleagues to join in the conversation. That has already been part of my own discussion with Martin when we met early in the morning. Everyone seems to agree on some situation we have with engaging our younger colleagues in dialogues and discussions and participation. What is less clear are ways in which we can tackle that. It's been a goal of Fine to really welcome and get our younger colleagues feel welcome and participating. So with that, I'm going to take the first question. Clara, I hope it is okay with you. I'm going to defer to Sari for something that I'll share with the audience. I apologize, Sari, one of our howler monkey experts. I don't know what happened. She did not get the invitation, so she was late to joining us today. I want to hear from you then. I need to understand, because if you didn't get it, many other people may not have got it either. So sorry, you go first. Take it as a little token of my feeling bad that you didn't get the invitation. I'm glad you're here, and then it'll be Clara.
Hi, Eduardo. Thanks. Yeah, it was strange. I didn't get the invite, and most probably lots of people didn't get the invite. Martín, hi. I was wondering whether the continuous forest, because it's an island, that in itself makes it rather unique in that these monkeys perhaps are trapped on that island, and that I'm sorry, yeah, something popping up here. And so that the high density is potentially higher than one would expect if the continuous forest was even more continuous and it wasn't necessarily an island. So I'm wondering if that is the case. And then I'm wondering if you know about sites where it is more continuous, to what extent, and so less density, to what extent these data that you presented are different. This is a big question, I know, but
No, I think it's not because if it's an island, it's because if flooded forest. It's a different forest. And if you go, I mean, we study that. I don't know. We are studying that island. Somebody began to study that island, and we continue the study from that island. But if you go to the mainland, close to the island, that it has the same kind of vegetation, just in front on the island, it has the same characteristic. It's full of howler groups living together. So it's not like they are trapped. I think there's something with the continuity of the forest. Or maybe the food. I don't know. And about the density, you mean in a different species or the same species?
no, the same species.
No, there are not many density information on like this. Well, yes, if you like flooded forest howlers close to our site, there are some information in dissertation thesis in Brazil, and they have these high density values. But what we found now, which is interesting, is like we had in the flooded forest, continuous forest, we have 3 howlers per hectare. In our fragmented forest, we have 1 when it's switching because of the fire. Then we open a new study site where we have a fragmented forest, but without the impact or an intense impact of people. Not you have to understand that the landscape in northern Argentina is this kind of savanna-like grassland. I mean, we have natural fragments, but connected among them. So where this connection remains, the density is 2. So we have these 3, 2, 1 numbers going around, and I don't know, maybe I know we were thinking, and then if you go to the site of Eduardo, where howlers live with Miriquina, density is 1. I don't know, because at the beginning I said, okay, the impact of Miriquina howlers is the same that deforestation in Corrientes, so the density goes down to 1. But then we found this place with density 2, so we had no idea now. We are looking, now we have students that are like trying to get all this data you asked. So they are like trying to review, talking to people in Bolivia, in Paraguay, in southern Brazil, talking to researchers and getting the data is not published to see this kind of variation in density and size.
It is interesting though that in the population, like on the continuous island, the number of encounters that they have, like 2 encounters a day, like from my perspective of what I know of the black howlers here in Palenque, in Mexico, that's crazy. That's that's a lot. Why are they howling if they encounter one another anyhow? I mean, one has to then start thinking about the ecology, the biology, like the evolution of the species, the genus, and kind of questioning a little bit too.
For me, it was a surprise too, this kind of because when you follow the groups, we had different people following different groups, and they say, oh, again. And so we were working at the end of the year or 2 years that we followed this group, we knew that they went to fight with this and this one. Some days or during the same day, the encounter was neutral, and during the same day, in the afternoon, they were howling. So we tried to associate howling to fertility in females for some kind of competition, but I didn't find anything. So I don't know why sometimes they are more intolerant and one days are more tolerant.
Yeah.
It could be like people going to work. Some days you don't want to see anybody, and some days you are okay and you drink a coffee with your friends. I don't know.
Yeah, very interesting though. Thank you.
So, Clara, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you for the talk. I'm Clara B. Jones, behavioral ecology, social evolution, mostly mammals, retired. I haven't studied or seen caraya since the days when they were still called black howler monkeys, and finally they were renamed. I have, by the way, last night I looked at your Google Scholar citations, and I see that you are interested and have published on a broad range of topics. I also noticed that you have studied with Paul, and that must have been a really rewarding experience. What I wanted to address was your statement that you're interested in understanding caraya, and you raised the question, why continue studying howlers? Well, one of my responses to that is that as scientists, we want to search for general patterns. And howlers allow us to search for general patterns across mammals, across herbivores, and across folivore frugivores. So what I did was go to an LLM. I went to AI, and the one I went to, which is pretty good, is Grok, which is available free on X, formerly Twitter. And the reason I went to this LLM, or to Grok, was that I knew that he or it, the entity, knew more about howler monkeys in its silicon-based brain than any student of howlers would have in his or her carbon-based brain. So I asked Grok, please, you have to be polite, please synthesize all of the information on howlers and tell me what general patterns you see that would generalize and apply to other mammals, to other herbivores, to other folivore frugivores. And I must tell you that this was a very, very eye-opening and informative experience. Very detailed, very knowledgeable, not only of primatology itself and Alouatta itself, but also of ecological and evolutionary factors and mechanisms that might apply to a broad synthesis of general statements. So I am just advocating for your use of the knowledge of one or more of these silicon-based tools to synthesize across taxa. And finally, Grok or GPT-4, which is what most knowledge workers are using, or the more sophisticated ones like O1 or O3, or Claude or DeepSeek, et cetera, Gemini. These will also do math modeling for you if you don't do that in your lab, and just are a source of remarkable, sometimes brilliant insights and thought-provoking statements. That's all I have to say, and good luck.
Thank you, Clara. I remember writing my dissertation and using your book on flexibility in howlers. That book was, to me, was an amazing book. Small book. I have it in my library.
Thank
In my
you.
bookstore. But yes, I want to say that I think that the problem that we have as primatologists, we are looking for patterns, but when we study more and more our subject, it's more difficult to find patterns. No, it's what I understand that we need to write and we want to say all howlers do this, and so howlers do this, and red colobus do this, and they are similar, but when you follow your monkeys, when you follow your groups and you follow different populations and you go through fires and do this and that and see how they solve problems, I mean, it's so difficult to find a pattern. I understand, I look for patterns and I write about patterns, but the reality that if you are working the field, I mean, you have to super force the pattern to be there.
Thank you, Clara. Should we?
Okay.
Next question, we have Karsten.
Yes, thank you, Martin, for a great talk with amazing long-term data. My name is Karsten Schradin. I'm a researcher at the CNRS in Strasbourg, France, studying mammalian social evolution, also especially in South Africa. And the question I have, the answer for it is most likely obvious. Maybe you quickly even said it, but I'm still asking the questions also from my background from more arid regions. This devastating wildfire you described, how common is this? How naturally does it occur? Is it something totally new that only occurred in the last few years? And what are factors leading to a higher probability that these kind of wildfires occur? It looked like it was something like a monoculture forest. Or can you comment on this, how uncommon or common it is, and what factors make it more likely to occur in the future again?
Why the fires have occurred? Well, I think that the fires are new. These kind of massive fires are new, but I don't know if before there were fires, but in the last, let's say 60, 70 years, we didn't have these massive fires. And I think what is happening now is a combination of you have fuel, which is dry grassland, and you have summers. No, summers down here, for example, a regular summer, you have 2-3 days of 40 Celsius degrees and a rain. 2-3 days of 45 and 2 days of rain, no, humidity and rain. And now, for example, this summer we have 1 month of 50 Celsius degrees every day without rain, and this is new. So this long run of these long dry seasons in the middle of the rainy season. So what you have, you have this. You have this fuel ready for fire, and then you have traditional practices of people having cattle that they fire grass to get new grass. So you have your cattle, and you need new grass, young grass for your cattle. So you burn some. When you hear that it's gonna rain, you read your thing and say it's gonna rain today. So begin to fire your grassland so you have new grass growing. but it never rained. And then so you have this combination of heat, brightness, and wind, and you had the massive fire. And this began in 2020, you know, in Pantanal was extremely a problem in 2020 in Pantanal. There is a paper where it says that we lost like primates were 500,000 primates. No, and it was 70 million like vertebrates, but it was 500. It was in one man fire in the Pantanal in southern Brazil, and well, that's all. And it's happening. It happened in 2020. We expect to have a new one, and it happened in 2025. So now we are waiting for a new one in 2 years. So we are ready now for not the animals. We are ready.
So you expect the fragmented forest to get less and less, and in 50 years it will be gone. And
that something happened here. The forest is like the forest stopped the fire. So you can see the fire going through the grassland and the palm tree, and when it reaches the fragment, it stops. The problem with howlers, most of the howlers dying is some fragments are so small that they get, you know, they get into fire, so they die. But many howlers die because it's so hot around the fragment that they get intoxicated, or or they trying to run away and they go through the fire. What we found many times in the necropsies is that the lungs were full of blood, so the lungs were burning because they were breathing heat smoke, no, super hot smoke.
But so if the forest stops the fire, there's some indication that the trees have some adaptations to cope with the fire environment and to stop and to slow.
There are some species that are resistant to fire that we know now, but I think it's because they are humid. No, the fire, these fragment forests are more humid, and so now our strategy is increasing the size of the forest fragment. No, we are disrupting the grassland with reconnecting the fragment of forest. But you know, it's interesting because we had a meeting to do this, and we said, well, we have 3 years to construct a forest. I don't know if we can do it, but we are trying.
Okay, thank you.
We had a question, Johanna, are you around? I don't see her. She posted a question, but I think she's left. So if she comes back, we'll go back to her. So the next question is from Adriana.
Hi, Martin. Thank you. Thank you for such a great talk. Really interesting, especially like all the environmental effects. And I'm interested in like how like social relationships are being affected by these fires. We've seen like changes in social cohesion in other species, like bird species in Australia. So I was wondering if you have seen anything related to changes in social behavior.
Not really. What we found out is a reduction in size in the groups, and this change between multi-male to unimale groups. But like the regular behavior of howlers didn't change. We have this kind of weird thing that we have more infanticide because they're more. But this is, you know, a response. It could happen anytime. An increase in infanticide rate. We are studying now. I think the groups are a little more unstable. I mean, there are less grooming than before in these small groups, but also the groups are formed by new animals. So these animals are encounter each other. I mean, it's hard to explain. It's like I don't want to humanize this, but you have some. They say that there is a fragment of forest that some howlers die, but the fragment still remain. No? It has 4, 6, 7 hectares. You have a group of 12 individuals, and now you have 3. So these random howlers coming from other burned forest fragments come to this group, and they are accepted, and they form a new group. and so grooming between these individuals is increasing during, so at the beginning there is nothing, and then it's increasing in time. So for what is new for me is the kind of this new way of grouping, how these howlers group together again after the fire. I don't know. I know I never saw that before, because before I saw, like, you know, one male and one female that get together and form a group, or one female trying to enter in an established group, or one male trying to take over a group. So that was the way the group were forming. And now we have this kind of individuals that meet in the only one place that is remaining, and they decided to live together.
Awesome.
I can't say nothing. I mean, it's new. I know.
Yeah. And you were also talking about heat waves. Are they very frequent, or are they a result of the burning that it's going on?
No, it's new. It's something new. I think from these last 10 years. Like the summer here, you know, this is seasonal. So the summers, when we should have more rain than in winter, we don't have any more rain. So at some point we say La Niña. But then the Niña passed by, and we still have these new long summers without rain, with, you know, these impressive temperatures. And but the same happened in southern Mexico, in Tabasco, where it seems that maybe Sari knows more than me, but these howlers die because of the drought. And it's new. It never happened
They
before.
could die. Do you see any change in behavior? Do you see them like probably more resting more, or more aggressive, less tolerant to other individuals?
No, I mean, I don't know. We are collecting data. We didn't did any connection with the
Okay.
heat wave. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Martin. And I forgot, Adriana Maldonado Chaparro from Universidad del Rosario in Colombia. And I work with social behavior, mostly rodents and birds. Yeah.
Our next question is from Suleima.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Can you
Yes.
hear me, Eduardo?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, hola, Martín. My name is Suleima Tan Martinez. I'm retired from the University of Missouri in St. Louis. Originally, I'm from Venezuela, however. And I worked primarily on rodents, small rodents to big rodents, including capybaras in Venezuela, with one of my graduate students, and some of my students also worked on other organisms that weren't rodents. I found your presentation really interesting, but it also brought back memories. When I was starting out, I was studying black-tailed prairie dogs in Kansas and had a catastrophe happen. And in 3 years, my colony was 100% extinct, and it has remained so. I've actually gone back to see if any prairie dogs have ever come back, and they haven't. And I know that it's not only a huge loss in terms of the research, but it's also, I mean, for me, it was a very emotional loss, and I'm very sorry that it's got to be very difficult to go through what you went through with the fires, and I just wanted to say that. My questions, I found the whole issue of the hybridization extremely interested, and I'm wondering if this has happened, if hybridization, to your knowledge, among howlers has occurred in other settings, and if so, under what conditions, and also whether hybridizing might be a common response to certain catastrophic events where population densities just totally crash. And are the hybrids sterile, or if not, if there's any chance that the hybrids themselves could produce small, like groups that then grow. And if there's any indication that hybridization could be, I don't want to say a mechanism exactly, but could be a process that can lead to speciation or
Wehrbewaffnete Polizisten zwischen Hantelbänken und Laufbändern.
hello in the howlers. And then lastly, you mentioned the howlers getting yellow fever, and I assume there's probably other diseases that they're getting. And I'm wondering if that occurs naturally or whether that might be being affected, increased, for example, from urbanization.
Yeah.
Were all those questions clear?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Hybridization. I know there are hybrids in between Alouatta palliata and Alouatta pigra in Mexico. The Liliana Cortés Ortiz was working on that. I don't remember the mechanism, but I think if one male cross with a female of one species, you get something, and if the female of male, you get something different. In Guariba and Caraya, we have at least 4 places where hybrids were reported. We have no data about their fertility yet, because they are not populations that are being studied. They are not long-term studies. So they found there are, for example, rangers or people that they found these 2 guys copulating, and then they report that, and then we have offspring for those females, but we don't know. The offspring are weird. Sometimes they are black with red spots, but we don't know the story, or nobody published yet the story of these guys. So I think that they are these species at some point, but they speciate at some point, but now they are re-encountering for some reason. I don't know if this is, I don't think it's associated to human stuff. So they are getting together in forests, and maybe the decrease in density of some species may make this individual the only available to reproduce. For example, in where these hybrids between Guariba and Caraya are occurring is where we have the highest impact of yellow fever. So the population of Guariba is decimated. I mean, there are 30 individuals in the whole state, and when they found a Caraya group, they live with them. So I know. So what we think, when we categorize the species now, we put this as a threat to the species. So hybridization can push the disappearance of Guariba finally, or not. I don't know. So that's one question. That was
Yeah, the other
one?
question was in terms of diseases that the
Yes.
howlers are experiencing. Is that something new from urbanization, or do these diseases occur naturally in populations that are in good shape?
So the yellow fever came at some point of the history from Africa, entered into Latin America, and found a vector to that like these mosquitoes that bite people. And yellow fever has 2 cycles: a sylvatic cycle and a urban cycle. And howlers are affected in the forest.
Okay.
For some reason, there are people that they don't get the vaccine and get yellow fever, and so the mosquito bite the person and the monkey. So now we call them sentinels of public health, because when we found a whole group of howler on the floor infected by yellow fever, we know that we have to vaccinate all the people around to avoid we want to stop the yellow fever to urbanize, because if the yellow fever into a city, that could be a catastrophe.
Yeah.
So it's a non-native disease, and they are super susceptible.
Yeah. And are there any other diseases that they're picking up from humans as a result of being in urban
Yes.
areas more?
They have everything. I know when I know the disease, they are positive for dengue,
Wow.
yellow fever, Nile, but many viruses, Zika we found, then Chagas disease, Leishmania. They have like 3 types of Leishmania, all the parasites that you can imagine. I don't know how they are alive, these guys. But we don't know. I mean, it doesn't have all these diseases or all these, not diseases, all these viruses and bacteria and pathogens. We don't find any symptom on these guys. I mean, we don't know if in the long run they're gonna decrease the fitness of individual or the groups. But the only one is really bad for them is the yellow fever. The other ones are bad for people, because you can vaccinate. Now we are vaccinating the people for dengue, but the howlers living on them, they have dengue in the virus within them doing stuff too. So we don't know. And it's something that is new too.
Yeah. Did you find COVID? Did COVID have any effect?
Which one?
COVID?
We found COVID. Yes, we found COVID. I found 2 cases of COVID in howlers, but nothing happened. So we found them in urban areas, very urban areas, like urbanized within cities.
Okay, thank you.
Next question, Tony.
Hi there, Martin. Good to see you. Thanks for a wonderful talk. I'm Tony DiFiore, Anthropology Department at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm a primate behavioral biologist and population geneticist. And Martin, I had one thing I wanted to ask you, but also kind of maybe a more general comment or question to spur discussion. I was really struck, and I've been struck when you've mentioned this before, the slide you showed where you had 4 species or 3 species of howlers highlighted, and you really commented on the fact that we don't know a lot about lots of other species of howler monkeys. We don't have long-term studies on many species of howler monkeys, despite their broad geographic distribution, despite the fact that they are pretty good model taxa for understanding or addressing questions that lots of us are interested in about geography and evolution and adaptation to different environments. It strikes me as somebody who works mostly in the Amazon at a site where there are howler monkeys present, and there's not an area where you don't find them, but the density is super, super low. They don't howl a lot. They don't have a lot of contact with one another, as far as we can tell. And there's been very little published, very little knowledge on kind of tropical or at least Western Amazonian species of howlers. Even basic natural history information like their diet and the extent to which they're different or not from lots of other species of howlers. And so I guess that's a comment. The howler monkey literature a lot better than I do, but is that an accurate assessment, I guess, of the state of the knowledge about tropical rainforest dwelling howlers, first off?
Well, it seems that howlers do better at marginal area habitats, no?
Yeah.
I mean, you think that if you consider that tropical environments are more uniform or more complex or more diverse than subtropical forest or temperate forests, howlers are going to be doing better in marginal areas. And it seems that they have adaptations to that, no? They have they have infants every years and a half in comparison to other athletes. They have all these adaptations. They have, they live only on leaves for 3-4 months.
Yeah,
So
it's interesting to think about those, that the way you phrase that those are adaptations to living in habitats that maybe we think of neotropical primates not having originated in, right? If you think about the common ancestor of all neotropical primates, I think most folks would think that those are tropically adapted arboreal taxa, and howlers show a number of behavioral and social and dietary and locomotor probably adaptations to being in habitats that aren't like tropical rainforest. That's cool to think about. More a question then for you. You made one other comment, and this is going to jump into a completely different topic. You made one other comment about how after those tragic fires, you went back and you found some of the same groups, but then you said, maybe one female with a different male, or one male with a different set of females, or some of the same individuals. So maybe more philosophically, what makes that the same group? Is it the fact that they're occupying the same area? Is it the fact that there's some continuity in an individual membership in use of that area? And maybe to push that, because I think we primatologists are very focused on a group as a natural entity, and a group that's something real and recognizable. And maybe I'm coming more to the realization that groups are pretty fungible and flexible, and membership in groups is, it's transient. It might be stable for a while, but it's often very dynamic. And I wonder what your experiences with both the study system that you've worked on for a while and with these tragic ecological conditions that are imposing maybe conditions where it's necessary for animals to be more flexible in their social associations, what you think that implies for, or opportunities that provides for expanding our theoretical conceptions of what a group is, and what a social system is, and what the limits of our study systems are.
Well, I think there are three things here. One is when you are in the fragmented forest and you have one group living in one patch of forest, that's easy. It's one group in a patch of forest. I mean, they don't go anywhere. They live there. We are finding now with Luciano Klander, they are forming matrilines between the groups within a fragment. So it's something different. When you ask me about what happened after the fire, it's more romantic. I mean, the group there was named X, and now the monkeys who live there are X again. But the group is still, I can't change the name, but the location is the same. I mean, this fragment of forest is the same. Now, when you go to the continuous forest, that's completely different. And that was something that I was trying to work with Paul at some point, but we never did it. It's like we have, you can find these units in this continuous forest. Now you have these groups, this male with these females. And then they met, all the groups met twice a day, and they have all these encounters. And then what we found is, like, for example, two males for one group went to live for a month to another group, and then they came back. And one female went to that group and then came back. So I was thinking in this kind of community, it's like a large community of howlers, living together, that this kind of environment allows them to do these things, And now it reminds me some guys in China. I know Colin Chapman mentioned also communities of Colobos sometime, and I think that they are in the continuous forest. It disappeared, this conception of group as we thought before. And I don't have many answers about that, because we have this kind of when we run the analysis of the infants and fatherhood, it was all mixed up, because the female went to have copulated with everybody whenever they want. They were choosing males, and then it was funny because we were making jokes. Then we said this male is in love with this female, and sometimes we have males like switching groups. So one center male with one group and another center male with another group, and they keep fighting each other, but with a new set of females. So I think it's very fluid. When they have the opportunity, it's something else going on.
Well, I have to say, I like that broader conception, right? That what we study are individuals that tend to associate with one another a lot, embedded in a larger society where you're familiar with your individuals that you don't associate with all the time, right? And it's very evocative of a different way, at least for me, at least from my training of thinking about mammalian social systems, and I think it's a good turn. I wanted to follow up too and just ask about individual animals. Do you see adolescents or young males or young females that are independently using the environment? They're not associating with other individuals very commonly. How does dispersal work in that particular context that you're working in? I ask that because we often see solitary howlers. Maybe we're just not seeing the rest of the social groups or the associations that they're having with other individuals. With a couple of times that we've put radio collars on a few howler individuals, they spend a lot of time hanging out by themselves, and they move away from oftentimes very far, not oftentimes, I'll say sometimes very far from where they were collared, from the set of individuals that they were collared with. And just curious what your experience with that is.
In the side with the lower density, we have males all over the place alone, and you have, yes, living alone and spending time alone, but always they were alone. We never, because you have this paper of Pope where she mentioned this a pair of males, migrating together and taking a group and then fighting among them. I never saw that in howlers. So, but in the other side, in the island where the continuum forest is, I mean, it's hard to see males move in couples there. So, but they are not like alone. So they move to other group and they come back. They do this, but they are not alone for a long time. Females, yes, females are more. The females have a different problem in howlers. No, I think it could be maybe infanticide or anything else, but there is a breeding space competition. It's very, very high. You can see females alone. It's very hard for them to enter into a group. Very, very hard. When you have 3-4 females, I mean, they are not going to enter ever. And you can, I know you see the same, but I see female howlers that dying on the trees, like they were, beaten by other howlers, females, blood all over the place. It's very. So this aggression, we were writing. So we have this same-sex aggression that we call. And so we have fighting between males, male replacement, that's not very super hard, but between females, terrible. I mean, they're super, super violent and aggressive. But it did not within a group, no? It's when they are trying to enter into a group.
Yeah. Thanks, Martin.
Do I want to be sure that, so we're going to skip Sari, because Sari, I want to ask you to be patient. Now you already asked a question. We'll go first to Alba, then to Lindelani, and then it'll be me, and then Sari, so that we give everyone a chance. Alba, you're next.
Okay, hi, I'm Alba Arce de la Chica. I'm the co-director of the Owl Monkey Project. Nice to meet you, Martin. Martin and I, we are together in APRIMA, the Argentinian Primatological Society. So this is the third time I rejoined the Zoom, so really sorry if you already said this and I missed it, but I feel kind of frustrated or embarrassed. I don't know which word I want to use, but we talk about so many things, but we don't talk about our science, our research. I didn't know like you had all this work already done in the fragments, and we are starting to work in the islands as well in our field site. So a lot of things to talk about later on. But I have so many questions. Let me focus just on 2 of them. Who are the monkeys going to those islands? Are those males coming from the gallery forest, from the continuous forest, going to the islands? Kind of like my question goes like, do you consider these different landscape, these islands, as low quality environments? Like, and if so, why?
No, I don't. You're asking me where are they coming from?
Yeah, like are those like dispersing males going to colonize these like empty forest patches, or like how do they move around? Like are those how are the dispersal patterns in your population, I guess?
I want to be sure that there's no confusion between the way we use island. Are you referring to the Paraná River that were they
The
studied?
fragments. Yeah,
The fragments.
the fragments. He was comparing the
Right. So
to
no,
the
I know that was happening
continuous forest.
because for them the island is only that continuous forest of an island in a river, and we've been using island for those patchy, those islands of forest, which are patchy.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
You guys were
The fragments. Yeah. Look, so this fragmented forest patches.
You're asking how they move between fragments? Sorry, because my
Yeah.
internet. They went.
Yeah,
They go
mine
down.
is really bad.
They go down through the ground. They walk.
But do you know if they come from the gallery forest? Like, do they disperse from there to colonize the island? Like, do you have any idea of how this happened?
We don't have the same system that in Formosa here. We have this kind of gallery forest, and the forests go in the same patch, go into the savannah. So we don't have islands. But if you have islands in the middle now, because of fragmentation, they go down to the ground and they walk and find space. I mean, howlers can walk a lot.
So I'm gonna rewatch this on YouTube because I don't know what you say.
I mean that.
Could you hear what Martin said, or your communication is breaking, Alba?
Yeah, I can hear. Sorry, like.
I want to try to repeat. He's saying, "Oh, she's frozen, right?" Oh, there you are. She's saying that the howlers will go to the fragments, just going on the ground. They walk a lot, and they will move to the fragments. But do you have a sense, Martin? I think that's where Alba, because you know also the Formosa system. When Martin refers to Formosa, he refers to the place where the Almaquí project has been functioning. You just have a central river, continuous forest, and now naturally occurring patches. I think that I'm guessing, Alba, maybe what you mean is, do you have a sense if there's a preferred direction to this movement? Are you seeing that the animals, you're thinking of those fragments more as sinks than sources? And that's where the question about the habitat quality comes in. Or you have seen animals also moving as likely from the fragments back to the gallery forest?
Exactly.
No.
That was my question, and I hear the problem.
No. We found that before the fires, we found that they work randomly, and males walk. They want to find another group of howlers. So they need, but in this fragment forest, males are looking for another group to get females, to fight for females. If they found another female, solitary female in this random walk, they stay wherever they are. If they find a fragment, they stay there, and they form like a couple, no, male female. If the male reach another howler group, they're gonna fight for the females if they consider they can fight. And then we have, I can explain why, but we have groups that were sinks and groups that were the other things. So we have groups that keeps growing in size and spreading animals. And then we have other groups that were receiving animals. So this happened. But after the fire, this changed. So now, and I cannot make any relationship between these groups and the kind of forest they live or anything like that.
Okay, so our next question is from Lindelani.
Okay, so hi everyone. So my name is Lindelani Makoya, and currently I'm a postdoc interested in the ecophysiology of solitary living at the university. We're working in the CNRS here in Strasbourg. So I wanted to find out, because you mentioned that you were seeing some male adoption, and I wanted to know with between adoption and infanticide, which of the animals, which of the sex was more, which sex did you see infanticide being done by the males as well, or just by the females? And because you mentioned that the adoption was done by the males. And then I have a second question.
Well, infanticide is made by males in howler monkeys. So when males find a different group, they fight and take over a group. He takes over a group and kill the infants just to get the females in cycling again. Females, I never saw or read a report of females doing infanticide in howlers. And male adoption is something weird. It happened twice in our side now with this kind of massive fires, and infants at the end die. So males were trying to raise them, but after 2-3 months, they died. Something happened. I don't know. We just wrote a paper that we sent to primates, I think. But they don't know how to raise an infant. Something, because the infant is sublactating, there is something else there. Or they need their mothers, I don't know.
Okay, so and then my second question, that you also mentioned that after the fire, the females did not immediately, or within that year, they didn't give birth. Was it because of stress or just because there was a lack of food within the area that they were not productive?
We have stress data. We think that they had a higher level of stress comparing to before the fire, and they keep these high levels for like a year or 2 years, more than that. I mean, the stress can be associated to the fire itself, or maybe to this. It could be less food or more animals walking around, more males walking around with this fear of infanticide, maybe for females. What we don't know, because we didn't get that data on time, if they get pregnant and lost the baby, or they couldn't get pregnant for the stress.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Thanks again for the lovely talk.
Sorry, you go ahead. Sorry, we'd rather have the two howler monkey experts talking to each other, or we're gonna run out of time. Go ahead.
Thanks, Eduardo. Actually, I have quite a bit of questions there. So there will be short questions. Just what Lindilani just said about this adoption and with the males and these infants dying anyway. How old were these infants? Because I have seen an infant survive. It was already 7 months old, and it survived in its own group. It had its brothers and sisters, and so it's definitely a different situation. But how old were these infants you're talking about?
Well, like 4 and 7 months, something like that. So it was before weaning, but they could feed independently.
Yeah.
We have female adoption, and they work easily. I mean, when the group is large enough and you have other females, we have females adoption. I mean, other female adopting infants, and that work out perfectly.
Yeah.
In this case, we have a male, a subadult male, and infants. No females in the group.
Yeah.
So this is strange. I mean,
yeah, sure. I was just wondering. Also, you mentioned with after the fire, with all these individuals moving around, and then I was wondering, how do you recognize your individuals? This is not a critique at all, because I know how difficult it is to recognize individuals outside their group, and I believe you don't have these animals marked, right?
in all this group we have most of the animal mark. I mean, when you have students running some kind of that they need to an individual, recognition, we place them anklets, color anklets to each individual. And if not, when we run these disease studies, we put them like caravans. And we have these caravans that we have a code of like 3 colors that change, like 3 little cables that change the color. So we have many animals identified.
Okay.
When I don't recognize it, when I have a new group and there is something new without any mark, I say, well, this guy is coming from somewhere else. And then we mark the animal, the new animal, and see what's going on.
Yeah, I didn't know that you had them marked. Then my actual question was, and that this is also what Lindelani mentioned or referred to, is that how long it takes for these populations after the fire to recuperate and start reproducing again. And it is very similar to what happened in Belize with the work of Mari Pavelka and Alison Behe, the recovery of that population after a hurricane. And so I was wondering if you already have some information about what role fruit plays in that, because their hypothesis was that once the forest was kind of regrown to such a level that it could produce fruit, and so the monkeys could start eating it, that is when cortisol levels went down, and that is when they actually could successfully reproduce again.
I think this is different because the hurricane destroyed all the habitat of howlers there, but here the surviving howlers, move to healthy fragment forest.
Okay.
So they were moving, and so the howlers that die, and then the survivors were living in forest fragment that were okay, or they didn't change a lot from before. But we lost the offspring for the first year, then the offsprings are coming every year and a half in each female. But for some reason that we found out, the groups, they don't grow. So we always have a high mortality of juveniles and infants. We always have like 60-70% of juveniles die in this forest. But now we have a higher mortality. Now we have like almost 80-90% of juveniles that they go through after weaning. We don't know why.
Yeah, well, let's hope, like talking about these long-term studies, and ones are struggling and others are not struggling, and who knows which one I'm referring to the struggling one. But let's hope that we can all keep up with long-term research, and that because with one of your questions, is it worthwhile keep on studying howler monkeys? And obviously your talk shows that it is. That is precisely what the point is. And we should all try, everyone, right? Not only obviously howler monkeys, but whatever we are studying, we should all try to keep on going. So thank you, Martin.
Well, thank you,
Sari.
Sari.
I was talking about this with Eduardo before about the importance of established long-term studies and then promoting these long-term studies from different places of the world. So, for example, I have a long-term study site, or Sari has one, or Eduardo has one. Then researchers from all over the world should send people to these sites to answer questions, maybe. Or if not, planning to open a new learn study site. Because then you can find a lot of paper where you study howlers for 2 years in one place that they never came back, or they never do nothing else. I mean, everything is important, but I don't know. Maybe we should rethink the thing we do, this stuff.
Thank you, Martin. We're almost out of time, so usually, and it's been fantastic. We had a wonderful, impressive 1 hour discussion. So what we normally at this time is thank our colleagues who are joining us through the YouTube channel. So with that, I want to say bye to them and remind them that you're always welcome also to attend via Zoom next week. But if you choose YouTube, that you can do as well.